Well, I got the rear motor mounts done. All good shape. Bolted up there. So the motor's sitting in the truck. And took this flywheel. Took that flex plate. And they had that spacer and that adapter with these bolts where these shorter bolts are. Took all that stuff off, got a couple shorter bolts, bolted it back up to the crank, and put in a new throw-up bearing. Getting ready to put the clutch on. Now the clutch is on. These outside circle here of bolts were already in the flywheel, and this was behind the automatic transmission, was bolted up to this, but the flywheel is already for a manual clutch. I just cleaned out the holes and the 14-inch clutch I had off the cat motor and the pilot bearing all bolted right up. We're ready for the transmission. I wanted to show you here, down here in the light. This is a bell housing adapter for a 5.9 Cummins. One of the Freightliners that I did buy had a 12 valve. It's right here. Well, what's left of it is right here. That block needs machined, but it's the common 12 valve Cummins that's found in any Dodge pickup, you know, back in the 90s. They also stuck them in the Freightliners, the FL50s, 60s, and some of the 70s. Not too many, but in order to put that motor in them trucks with a SAE bell housing, they built the bell housing just for that motor. Now this allows you to run a heavier transmission, and I mean all of it's right there. You can, some may notice, that is the back side of that's what would bolt up to the back of the motor. And then on the top side up here is where the back side of the motor mounts. Something else I've really enjoyed about working with these is the back of the motor bolts on with the bell housing, and with this Cummins anyway, they bolt this mount to the front of the block, and they use one center point in the center of the block to mount the front of the motor. So you got one point in the front and one point on each side in the back of the bell housing. That mounts the whole motor in the truck, so you're front and back. And usually the transmission just hangs off the back of the bell housing on these smaller transmissions anyway. And this would be the flywheel off of the 5.9 Cummins. And see, they had this adapter plate. This was another adapter from another automatic transmission I took off. Another part, you know, that I was saying about, there's a flex plate that they had to space away from the flywheel for the torque converter. And then this adapter is really cool. I forget what Allison transmission it was. I never got the model or anything. But this adapter ring bolts, see there, it bolts right up to an SAE bell housing, and then the inside bolt holes down in here is what that automatic transmission bolted to. So they built an adapter ring so they could fit the transmission to any motor, which all I had to do putting a manual transmission on was unbolt this ring, take the flex plate off and that adapter piece, get shorter bolts to bolt the flywheel back up to the motor, and bolt my manual clutch back on. These, as far as I've noticed, for a 14-inch clutch, all of these holes are all standard too, all the threaded holes that bolt your 14-inch clutch up. So it's not brand specific either. You get a 14-inch clutch, the splines are all the same, the input shaft bearings all the same, and the way it bolts to the flywheel is all the same. It's really made it really handy to build these trucks when all this stuff here is the same. Okay, the transmission's in, hanging off the back of the motor. I finished putting the bolts in it. Let's do something about this drive shaft. Here it is down there on the floor. And that is the original drive shaft for this truck and transmission. So we're going to shorten it up some. Let's get to it.